Hi everybody, welcome to Dirtfish. Let's talk about manual transmission training. Oops. This is a very basic technique, but it's becoming increasingly rare as most cars on the road are automatic transmissions or some sort of flappy paddle. So understanding how to operate a manual transmission is becoming less and less obvious, and it's a little bit harder to find a car to even practice on. So we thought we'd get together and put together this little piece to help both understand what's happening with it and then give you some tools and techniques that we use here to understand how to run a manual transmission. So first and foremost, it's important to understand that when you're shifting the gearbox, the reason they call it a gearbox is it has gears inside. So when you are moving the gear shift, you are actually getting the gears to mesh together. So taking your time and being patient with the machinery is very important. This is a machine, despite it being a car and fancy and cool on the inside, you are operating a machine. So moving that lever from one position to the next is actually changing gears and changing ratios in there. So it's important to take your time and let the machinery mesh together as you would any sort of device. It's not just a lever just for flopping back and forth. So what we have here is a standard H pattern. In this case we have 6 speeds for going forward plus 1 for reverse. It's divided basically into an H, which is the classic idea there of you can move it side to side to select which gate you want, and then forward or back to decide which gear you want, which specific gear you want. Anytime that you're stopped and planning to go into a gear, the clutch pedal needs to be down. So clutch pedal in this case is the far left pedal, and that one, just basically consider you're connecting the engine to the road at that point in time. So anytime the clutch is out and you're in a gear, if you hit the brakes and come to a stop, the car will stall because the engine is trying to run without the ability to put that power anywhere. So if you're starting and stopping, that clutch pedal needs to be down. So we're going to start off with first gear, which always move to the left or right when selecting a gear first, and then push it into the gear that you want. So in this case we want first gear, so it's over to the left and forward for first gear. And we don't even focus on really worrying about the gas pedal yet so much. We want to understand the feeling of the clutch pedal and see what's happening there. As we release that clutch pedal, you're engaging the engine with the transmission. So if you quickly release off, you're going to quickly dump all of the power of the engine into the transmission, and the car isn't going to like that in a short amount of words there. So we want to be smooth and slow with our release of the clutch, and that allows the engine speed to slowly and gradually match with the road speed itself there. So really, when we talk about a clutch release, when we're teaching a student here, is to just basically go out until you start to feel the car move. At that point in time, pause your foot there, and that will allow the car to keep up with what the engine is doing and with what your foot's doing. And so I'm going to slowly release my foot out here, and you'll hear the engine note drop. The car's starting to move a little bit, and I'm just kind of holding my foot there for a second and letting the car kind of keep up with what's going on. If I was to quickly release the clutch, that would stall it. If at any point in time it does lug a little bit, I'm just going to push the clutch all the way back in. Nothing wrong with that at all. That will keep the engine running and keep the car from stalling. So I'm going to release the clutch a little bit more, get ourselves moving here. The engine note dips down a little bit. You can see it moving on the tachometer there. And I'm just holding my foot there at that particular point, and then the car is taking off all on its own. And there we go. Once it's moving, and I feel the car starting to move ahead, now my foot's completely off of the clutch, and here we go. At that point in time, we'll give it a little bit of gas, and we're ready to rock. So granted, first gear isn't good for a huge amount of speeds, but this gets us moving from a dead stop, and is the one that's the most challenging because that's the case there. We're moving from a dead stop. Anytime that we want to come to a stop, that left leg needs to get into action and push down that clutch pedal. So I'll show you a stop here. So first, off the gas pedal, clutch is going down, and then I'm applying the brakes with my right foot here. Easy peasy, very simple there. I'll show you another start here, a little bit quicker. Again, not really worrying about the gas pedal, but I'm going to slowly release. The car starts to move, the engine note dips, and now we gradually start to pull the car away from our stop. A little bit quicker release there, and the car is up and moving. Now, okay, we're on level ground, we're on pavement, the car wants to move quite easily, there isn't a lot of resistance, there isn't a hill we're fighting with, anything like that. So in that case, it's really easy. However, if we want to change our approach to things, we want to accelerate faster, or we are dealing with a hill, the dreaded hill, we just add a little bit of gas. The gas helps give the engine a little bit more speed and give the engine a little bit more power. The smoothness of the release of the clutch does not change, however. What gets tricky is when we're trying to manipulate the gas pedal and the clutch pedal smoothly all at the same time. That gets quite tricky. And this is usually when folks start to stall the car, is they start to release the clutch, we put the focus on the gas pedal and no longer on the clutch pedal there. So a simple way for us to adapt to that is to simply get the engine to rev to a particular point. In this case, I'm going to go for about 2,000 RPM. On our tachometer, that's the number 2 there. And I'm going to do the same exact thing I had done before with the clutch pedal. So I'm going to move the shift lever over and forward to first gear. The engine is sitting there at about 2,000 RPM. I'm going to do the same thing I had done before with the clutch pedal. I'm going to release it out till I hear the engine note dip. I'm not going to adjust my throttle pedal at all, and then just slowly release that clutch pedal a little bit more. And it's hard to tell from the camera, but we took off a lot sooner and a lot quicker than we did before. That would also help us if we had a slight incline that we were trying to get out of, for trying to start on a hill there. So there you go, simple tip there. Just release the clutch slowly the whole time through. If we want to go even faster on our start here, then we ask for more gas, and then we can slip the clutch a little slower. So I'm going to go for a 3,000 RPM start here, and that means I'm going to hold it at 3. I'm going to slowly release that clutch a little bit there, and then the car takes off a little bit quicker. At that point, clutch pedal is all the way released, adding gas pedal there, and we take off. Here we go. We're darn near a rally car driver at that point. All right, so there's some basics for just getting the car started as well as coming to a stop. Stop is easy. You don't have to be smooth with the clutch on the way down. In fact, quicker the better. That gets the job done with and over. In fact, it's even better to go quickly, as that means that we can stop quicker. So clutch pedal down and on the brakes and come to a stop there. So we can hit the brakes without pushing the clutch pedal down. However, that means that we're going to stall the car. We can also push the brakes up to the point of stopping and not have to worry about stalling the engine, as long as we can get our clutch pedal to the ground before we come to a stop there. Show you what I mean here. Coming to a nice quick stop, I'm using my right foot to brake. Just before coming to a stop, foot pedal goes down. You can't see that, but because I was in second gear, the car started to groan a little bit and started to fight me a little, and that's when I pushed the clutch pedal down. Engine returns to idle and normal, and the car comes to a stop. And of course, anytime that you're come to a stop and you want to release the clutch pedal, you need to be in neutral. Good little way of testing if you're in neutral or not is to wiggle the gear shifter. So we wiggle it back and forth here, and that is in a gear. In this case, we're in second gear. When I put it forward into neutral, then we wiggle it. You see, it's a much bigger wiggle. At that point in time, then we can release the clutch pedal and not have to worry about the car taking off. This is a good thing to do when you're sitting at a stoplight or a stop sign or something, when you're just waiting around and you don't want to have to sit there with both feet on the pedals there. Allows you to relax a little bit. So in this case, we've got our car in neutral. Again, I'm going to select first gear, so clutch pedal all the way down to the ground. And that's one thing to keep in mind too. If we don't get that clutch pedal all the way down, depending on the car, it may not completely disengage the clutch there, so we have to completely push that clutch pedal all the way down. Then over to the left and forward to select first gear. We're feeling pretty comfortable with our launches here, so I'm going to give it a little bit of gas, and I'm going to release that clutch a little bit there, and then we take off. And as we go up through the RPM range here, we get a little bit higher than the engine wants to hang out at. So at that point in time, we want to talk about shifting to a different gear. When we're shifting to a different gear, we're just selecting a different ratio that allows us to take advantage of the RPM. We're just selecting a different ratio there, which allows us to accelerate at a different rate. So in this case, where we've reached the highest level that we want to in first gear. We're going pretty slow, but in this case we're just cruising around. We don't want to overstress the engine. So off of the gas pedal, clutch pedal down. I'm going to pull back through neutral into second gear, then release the clutch pedal smoothly. Now we're in second gear and we can take off. One thing that's really important, again, remembering that this is a machine, is we don't want to slam it back into second gear. That doesn't do any work for us. The car will most likely accept the gear into second gear if we jam it, but you're not being sympathetic to a machine. Remember that you're trying to allow gears to mesh together, and any amount of quick, abrupt movements is being unkind to the machinery there. So once again, I'm going to start from a dead stop, and we will take off and go up to second gear, and I'll even go up to third gear. We're going to keep our speeds low. That allows me to shift slowly for demonstration purposes, but at least we'll see what a gear shift looks like going up through the gears. All right, so clutch pedal is down, right foot is on the brake. I'm going to move it over to left to select the first and second gear gate, push it forward into first gear, and release off of the brake pedal, go for a little bit of gas, and then release that clutch nice, smooth, and slow, and we're off and running. I'm ready to shift to second gear, off of the gas pedal, clutch pedal down, pull back into second gear nice and smooth, release the clutch, and then go for gas. Should note that it's important that you don't go for gas while you go for the first to second gear shift. You'll see that engine revs quickly, and then when you release the clutch, it will, what's called a clutch dump, and it won't be very smooth. So you're better off just hanging out off of the gas pedal while you make that shift. Now we're going to go for third gear because we're feeling pretty happy. And again, same as going from first to second, off the gas, clutch pedal down, forward, over to the right, and up into third gear, then release off the clutch, and then back into the throttle there so that we can accelerate and continue there. So there you go. We're going up through the gears, all the way up to sixth gear is the same thing. The one thing to think about is anytime that we're slowing, we're changing our speed, coming to a stop, all of that, we're going through a corner, we need to have a little part in the back of our brain that's aware that we're going to need to shift, possibly change speed, all of that stuff. So it does require a little bit more thought process in when you drive a manual transmission, but to be frank, that's what's cool about it. You're driving a machine, you're controlling a machine, so heck yeah, you need to be paying attention to what's going on in your machine. If we're approaching a corner on the street and we want to downshift, we will need to slow the car and select a lower gear so that we can accelerate from the corner in the correct gear. So in this case, I'm in third gear and I want to exit the corner in second gear. So I am going to, first and foremost, put the clutch down. That allows me to select a different gear. I'm going to brake to slow for the corner. I'm going to pull the gear shift into neutral, then over and back into second gear, release the clutch, and then accelerate through the corner there. So it's very basic, very simple. As long as you're smooth and slow, then the machine will allow you to do what you need it to do. And to be honest with you, it is a machine. It will tell you what it likes and doesn't like. If the transmission isn't allowing you to get into gear, don't force it. Just let it happen. Take a different approach. Sometimes if you're parked at a stoplight and the car doesn't want to go into first gear, go back into neutral. By that I mean leave it in neutral, release the clutch, let the transmission move for a little bit, then clutch down, then go into first gear. At some points, the teeth are not lined up, and so the transmission won't slide into the gear that you want, won't select that gear that you want. So, going back up through the transmission here, clutch down, up into third, clutch out. I'm going to accelerate a little bit more. Going for fourth, we're feeling really happy. I'm going to release off of gas, clutch down, pull back into fourth here, clutch out, and now we're really moving. We're feeling pretty good. We need to come to a stop, so in this case I'm going to brake, right foot on the brake pedal, clutch pedal all the way down, and we've come to a stop. Now I'm going to select neutral, so push the gear forward, wiggle it a little bit, see what our neutral feels like, and it's always a good idea to release the clutch pedal slowly, just in case the gear shift may have caught half of a gear, and we don't want to both grind a gear or accidentally take off when we don't want to. So take your time, release the clutch smooth and slow. Then once you don't feel the car move, then you can relax, hang out, and of course, check your makeup. And you can relax, hang out, and get ready to launch again from a stop. In this case, clutch pedal down, over and forward into first gear, a little bit of gas, and then pulling smooth and slow away using the clutch pedal. So those are the simple basics. And again, this will get you comfortable with the basic mechanics of going through shifting, a little bit of an understanding of how to use a clutch pedal, what the purpose of that is, and sort of some overly simplified techniques there. If we want to go faster, well, yes, of course, the techniques that we're talking about are not quick. Those are meant to understand what's going on there. So we'll do a little bit of a quicker launch here. I'm going to use more gas and a slightly quicker release of the clutch, but I still am going to release that clutch smooth and slow. It's just going to happen a little bit faster. And it honestly takes a little while to driving a car to understand where the clutch release point is. It's slightly different in every single car. Even one of our school STIs to another school STI still has a slightly different clutch release point. So it does take a little bit to learn your car and understand where that release point is. So, all right, we're gonna go a little bit faster. I'm gonna give it a little bit more gas, and I'm going to release that clutch smooth and slow. And as you take off a little bit, you can see going up through the gears a little bit faster there. I'm gonna slow for this corner, pull it down a gear, and then accelerate out. So we are just driving around our tarmac here, so I'm not maintaining some speed through there. Our shifts, our speed related shifting techniques aren't coming into play. This is still street driving techniques here. All right, so what if we're on a hill, the dreaded hill, and we need to take off, and there's a guy on our back bumper. We can't even see his license plate. His headlights are in our rear view mirror. He's not being a very courteous fellow motorist. Well, no worries. There are a couple of techniques that you can use. A couple of them involve getting fancy with your footwork. Another one involves getting your handbrake or your parking brake involved in the situation as well. And again, these are just little tidbits here that you can use to help keep you comfortable and keep you safe and keep you from running back into the jerk behind you. So we're gonna start out, all of our techniques are exactly the same. We're about to start out on a hill here. I've put ourselves on a hill by the gazebo here at Dirtfish. I'm over and forward in first gear, and you know, if you have a little bit of room behind you, it's okay to let the car roll back. I'm sure you've seen lots of cars roll back as they start off. You will need to be very smooth with the clutch release, as any quick release will be exaggerated here and stall the car even quicker. Need a little bit more gas, and kind of that overlap point of when the gas and the clutch go past each other is a lot slower in this case. So I'm going to take off like normal, as if I didn't have anybody behind me, and I'm not worried about rolling back, just to show the difference there. So you have a short little time there from when you release the brakes, and the car is going to coast back in neutral for a second, and I need to get my right foot over on the gas pedal to help catch it so that I can accelerate away. So this is one simplified technique here, and this is very basic. So release off the brake, give it a little bit of gas, and then slowly roll off the clutch pedal there as you continue to feed it some gas there. So that is one where you don't have to worry about anyone behind you. You don't have to worry about the amount of space that you have on the car behind you. You're not really concerned with much there. Perfectly acceptable. As you can see, the car rolled back probably about 2 feet, and we accelerated away. I'm being a little bit lazy there with my clutch release to describe it, but if we wanted to go a little faster, release off brake, clutch pedal out, and start to release there a little bit. And if anybody's really sharp and noticed, as I released off the clutch, it kind of bogged a little bit, so I kind of moved my foot gently back in to allow the engine revs to go back up, and then release the clutch again so that I could take off here. So some cars are a little bit different, especially like I had an old diesel pickup, and I could basically just release the clutch on any hill and it liked it. I didn't need to use any gas on any hill. In fact, when it was wet out, it was better not to use any gas. So you may be able to hold the car there with the clutch pedal out a tiny bit, Now in effect, you're kind of holding it there with the engine and the clutch. This will increase wear a little bit, but it does keep the car from rolling back a little bit. So I'm released the clutch just a little, and now I'm giving it some gas and starting to take off up the hill. So that does slightly wear the clutch a little bit more. However, it does let you find that release point, especially in a car if you're unfamiliar with the grip point or the release point of the clutch there. It allows you to find that so you're ready, so that when you do release off the brake and go to gas, you're ready to take off up the hill. So that one, you know, depending on the car, depending on your familiarity with the car or the life of the clutch, you can use that to help hold the car there while you find the release point. Another one is you can get fancy with your feet, and I'm shifting my foot over a little bit so that I can rock the gas pedal as I'm holding the brake pedal down. This one gets a little trickier, and it tends to be not as smooth as you're trying to rotate your foot and release off of the brake pedal. But the point is, I'm holding the brake pedal so the car doesn't roll, plus I'm holding a little bit of gas so that I'm ready to release the clutch. At that point in time, I can start to release the clutch a little bit, and then the car doesn't roll back nearly as much. So basically, I've revved up the engine, I'm holding the car with the brakes, and I'm releasing the car away from a hill. That one gets really tricky, especially if you have big luggy boots like I have here. It doesn't want to slide over very much, but it is one more technique. Finally, an easy one is to just hold the car with the parking brake. I'm sitting here holding it. I don't even have my foot on the brake pedal at this point in time. Now we can release as if we were on regular level ground. So I'm giving it a little bit of gas, starting to release the clutch pedal. When I feel the car start to move and I'm confident that I'm not going to stall, then I'm going to gently release the parking brake and then take off up the hill. So that's an easy one. Obviously, we have a specifically designed hydraulic handbrake here that allows us to lock up the brakes more consistently than a parking brake does. But if you have a lever type parking brake, then you can use that to help with the hill control there. Now here's a funny one. A lot of cars don't have a parking brake anymore that has a lever. If you have a foot pedal, that's tricky. If you have just one of those simple electronic levers, best of luck to you. You may be able to use that. The car may allow you to do that. It may not. To be honest, I'm not sure. But it is worth trying. I would definitely try that out on a parking lot, not on the street, before you tested that technique for sure. There are obviously a lot more techniques that you can talk about. There are obviously a lot more techniques that we can talk about when faster speed techniques. There are obviously a lot more techniques that can be applied to God. See, I get a pretty good run, and then when I try and do it again, all fails. Hollywood will never accept me. There are obviously a lot more techniques that are involved when higher speeds are involved, when higher speeds are involved, when a different transmission style is involved, like say a non-synchro transmission, a dog box, sequential, whatever you want to talk about there. But really this will get you in the ball game and understanding how to operate a manual transmission car. Highly suggest that we go and practice these techniques in a closed area, or at least not in open traffic, so that you can develop the techniques while you're comfortable in a closed environment and away from other traffic. Then once you're well practiced, get out on the road that's less traffically congested and go have some fun. Traffically congested is a new word, by the way, patent pending. If you have more questions about things, or you're uncomfortable or unclear on something that we talked about here, feel free to hit us up. There's info below the video here. My name is Nate. I'm happy to talk at length about anything regarding rally cars, driving manual transmissions. In fact, I will bore you to tears about all kinds of rally stuff. But if you have any more questions about anything, feel free to hit us up at any point in time. We'll be happy to go over. If you want to understand how to drive a rally car on a loose surface with one of our school STIs or BRZs, hit us up as well. We'll be happy to jump in the car with you and show you a few more advanced techniques. Come check us out. Everybody, this is a handbrake downshift clutch release with a semi-half donut mixed in there, because it's time to go back to the shop, and I think we're close to lunch.